What is up, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of What the Marriage. My name is April, and this is my hot, smoking, fine, dope husband, Jonathan.
What's up? What's up?
We are so excited that you're back with us this week. Real quick before we jump in, we just want to hand out a few flowers. There's been some people that have just continued to support us and just inspire us throughout this journey. So Pam, Dawn Carthorne, our friends, our mentors. Listen, you guys are just so amazing. We love you so much. Last week, after our last episode, they just sent us a quick text message just encouraging us to keep going. And you need people like that. You need a tribe of people that are just going to encourage you and push you not to stop. So we love you guys. We appreciate you. And one other person that we didn't get to give a shout out to yet, but it is so overdue, is Nico Johnson. Listen, Nico is the truth, man. He is legit. When he found out we were first going to launch a podcast, I swear within milliseconds, he's sharing my post on Facebook. He's sharing the podcast. He's liking, he's subscribing, he's promoting it, all without being asked. I mean, it's crazy.
Let me interject something. Dude, we could have been trash.
Yep.
He was still on it.
We could have been straight garbage.
He didn't even know. So, Nico, we appreciate you, bro.
We do. We love you. We appreciate you. Yeah, and if you don't got yourself a Nico Johnson, you need to get yourself a Nico Johnson, because those guys is the truth. But anyway, all right, let's get into it. This week is the show.
Yeah,
So what's the show?
Listen, the show is real simple. The show is the reveal. It's the reveal. What's behind the curtain? We get in when we get into marriage. When we get into marriage, we don't know each other. We're just kind of filling each other out. Everything is new. And then things starts to be revealed.
You mean like a TV series? It's like a TV series.
Wait, yeah, that's dope. Yeah,
It's like a TV series.
It's just like a TV series.
Yeah, like,
Wow.
because you figure, if you watching a TV series, you start a new series and you're like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna keep watching after this first episode, but I'm gonna see what happens.
Right.
So then you get in, you're watching it, and if you get a really good writing team on your episodes, you be like, wow, they only revealed just enough to keep you to come back to the next episode.
Right. That's the show.
That's what it is.
That's the show right there.
And if you get a really good season, you know how you be like, man, I just got to keep watching this thing. And don't let it be an episode that you can binge watch, or a season you can binge watch, because you'll be sitting in front of that TV all day long.
You gotta know what happens, and I think that's the show. So marriage is a lot like that. So when that first 2 or 3 years, you're like, okay, y'all learn each other. The honeymoon's great, and you're like, man, you can't keep your hands off each other. Everything is going great, and then it's a twist.
Well, I think, like you were saying, it's complex, right? So if you come in to marriage with baggage, or you come into marriage with, most people do, they come into stuff that they haven't revealed yet. So I know I came in with baggage of just low self-esteem. I always wanted to have that feeling of being accepted. And later on, when I started to understand what the 5 love languages were, I understood that words of affirmation and physical touch were my top primary love languages. So I didn't know that, but coming into it, when I didn't get those things, then the arguments start. So I remember one time I had put on something. We were getting ready to go out somewhere, and I had put on this outfit, and it was probably a time when it was a little cooler outside. So what I had on was probably not that appropriate, but I put it on anyway. And then here he comes. He's like, so you going to wear that? And I was like, what do you mean I'm not going to wear that? Yes, I put it on. This is what I'm going to wear. So I immediately had an attitude like, why are you asking me what I'm wearing? And he was like, oh, okay. So then I started to sit there and think about it. I was stewing over it. Like, why did he ask me what did I have on? He didn't give me nothing else. He just said, oh, okay. And then he left the room. And I'm like, so after like 5 minutes, I'm like, enough. I go and I change my clothes into something completely different. And it was probably like equally as not appropriate. It probably was the same, texture or whatever. He comes back, he's like, why did you change? And I was like, well, because you told me to change. He's like, no, I didn't. And I was like, you asked me why was I wearing that? He's like, yeah, I asked you because it was cold outside and you're probably going to want to put a jacket on. And I was like, well, why didn't you just say that? So then we get into this argument right before we're about to go somewhere. And two main things. One, it's because I didn't ask him to clarify why he was asking me what I was wearing. And two, he didn't give me enough information to go by. We both could have done differently and responded differently in that scenario. But a lot of our arguments happen like that. It's me taking something that he said, taking offense to it because what? Of my own insecurities, my low self-esteem. When anyone questioned me, I immediately thought that they were attacking me instead of something else.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I think it comes back down to communication. Mm-hmm. So communication is not just what you say, but what the other person understands. So what did you understand in that moment versus what did I communicate? What you understood or heard was, wow, through the lens of your own emotions and your own insecurities, you heard, well, maybe I should change, or maybe, I don't know what he's thinking. Being left to your own thoughts.
Yeah.
And I didn't give clarity. It's cold outside. Nah, sweetheart, I don't want you cold. I don't want my assets freezing. See. Anyway, communication, what she understood. And that's something simple. So a key thing that we can do when communicating is make sure the person understands what you're trying to say. Just ask them, right. What did you hear when I said that? Then it's a two-way conversation, not you just giving out an order or a command,
right.
And they're being left to their thoughts to interpret what you're saying.
And it's hard to show emotions. Like, to reveal your emotions and to reveal what your actual intent is, it's hard. And we talked about that before, of how complex they are, because you have what?
Yeah. So, wow, complex emotions. Emotions do get complicated. For me, it was anger. Anger I have, and to this day, I still have some anger issues that I'm still working with on the daily basis. But early on in our marriage, everything manifested through anger. Everything. I was angry about everything because other things in my life weren't going right. So it was just a mask. So in the show and in the reveal, my reveal and my transparency was this. I would manifest anger and I would show anger towards my wife because I was sad, or because I was scared, or because something wasn't working out right. I couldn't be the best husband that I thought I could be. So now I'm mad. What's your problem? I don't know. You know how fellas would be like we don't really want to talk about it because we don't talk about our emotions.
Yeah. I mean, that's good, because I remember those times. He would literally come home, and a lot of times it would happen when you would come home from being at the studio and you'd be working on some music and you would come home and I'm thinking, oh, he had a great day at the studio, and then he just comes home and he's just mad. And I'm like, so then again, my low self-esteem thinking it's me, but it could have been a number of things, you know?
Hey, right. And it was never you. It was my frustration of not being able to provide for you, because I know security is one of the number one things that I was supposed to provide for her. And if I'm not able to do that, then it manifested into a lot of other things. And anger was one of them. But the underlying emotion was what? It was fear. I fear that I can't provide. I can't sustain our living. Yeah. Fellas, how many of y'all know that you just can't come home and be like, oh yeah, hey, I can't provide for you. So yeah, that happened. Hey, you want to get something to eat? Oh, I forgot. I'm broke and I don't got no money because I can't provide. Anger. Turning to anger again. That's that angry thing again. So it's like processing through those emotions really helps. And this is what the show is about. It's revealing at that moment in that time in our life, that was a very difficult.
Right. We weren't just openly revealing those things. And most of the time, what we were feeling was manifesting in other areas. Like I said, I had issues with self-esteem. So anytime that he didn't affirm me in any way, whether it was how I looked today, or if I tried to be, extra pretty that day, maybe I dressed up, or maybe I tried to clean up the house, or maybe I decorated the house in a different way. Again, him coming home with his frustrations already, he's not going to notice all of these things that I did. And so I'm like, what's the point of doing them? He's not affirming me. He's not making me feel wanted. He's not making me feel needed. And I learned the most valuable lesson about that, and how my self-esteem issues was impacting our marriage, is when I was invited to go to this women's luncheon. I did not want to go. So let's stay there. I did not want to go. And you're like, well, why? Because I was young and I'm going to this luncheon with all these older people. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. But my sister-in-law, she made me go and said, no, you need to go. It'll be good for you to get out, fellowship with some people. So I did it. So I'm sitting at the table with these older ladies, and we're eating and they're laughing and talking. And she asked me, how long have I been married? So I tell her, and she's like, oh, you still got a long way to go, baby. You ain't even in it yet. And I think at that point we were married less than a year. And I was like, yeah, but he just doesn't get me. He never, I do all these things. I'll try to decorate the house. I'll dress up, and he just doesn't even acknowledge it. And I said, I just feel like he doesn't appreciate me, or he doesn't feel I'm pretty, or, and I'm running down a list of just superficial stuff. And she was like, okay, but do you know you're pretty? Do you know you're valuable? Because sometimes men are dealing with stuff and they may not recognize it, but you got to know it for yourself. And I was like, what? What do you mean I got to know it for myself? And she's like, you have to know it for yourself. And then she asked me a question. She was like, what's one thing that you like about yourself? What is one thing that you like or love about yourself? And then it occurred to me that I couldn't give her one thing, not one. And in that moment, that was the moment that I realized I'm the problem. Because if I can't recognize where I'm strong at, where I'm beautiful at, where I'm valuable at, then how did I expect my husband to see those things? Your husband is not sent to save you. He's not sent to make you believe that you're all of these things. He's there to reaffirm you. He's there to encourage you and add on to what you already know. But if you don't know it for yourself, then you're already in trouble.
You're right. No, that's good. Wow. That's good. That's good. You're beautifully and wonderfully made. You're amazing. And fellas, that's where we have to make sure that we are affirming our women. We have to make sure we're affirming them. Her insecurities, I didn't have anything to do with. I can affirm her and tell her how much she's loved every single day. Mm-hmm. Compliment her every single day. Like now, you're amazing. You're beautiful. And I love everything about you. Everything. Everything.
Yeah, he does.
Just like that. It'll help stop some of the things and some of the damage that's already been done. Words of affirmation is one of my wife's love languages, primary. Mm-hmm. You know what another one is? Another one is physical touch. Mm-hmm. I didn't grow up in a house with a lot of physical touching. Like, we wasn't big huggers or anything like that. So with that, my wife's primary love language was physical touch. Mm-hmm. So we would go out places and my wife would try to hold my hand, and I would be like, I wouldn't smack it down or anything like that. Like, that's ignorant. But I'm like, I wouldn't hold her very long because it was uncomfortable. Yeah. It was uncomfortable because I'm like, why are you touching me? You're like, what? What do you mean? I love you. You love me, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so you one of them dudes that you just want to touch me at night. And I did want to touch her at night. But it had nothing to do with that. Yeah. Me personally as a man, I didn't grow up with all that touchy stuff. So I didn't know how to show her that.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to speak her love language.
And as a result, Again, this goes back to reveal. So as a result, I'm thinking that it's me because my low self-esteem, he doesn't want to acknowledge that we're together. He doesn't want to acknowledge me by holding my hand. So then you see how his reveal and my reveal and the challenges that we were facing collectively, they kept smacking each other. They just kept, because he was dealing with stuff that I knew nothing about.
Right.
I was dealing with stuff that he knew nothing about. So him not wanting to hold my hand because it was uncomfortable for him, that triggered my insecurity of not being accepted, not wanting to be seen with me. And then it just became a cycle until we started to learn how to talk through those things. And that didn't happen immediately because we didn't recognize it immediately.
We did.
Only after like a couple years in that we start to like, hey, why do you do that? Because you have enough, and then you just be like, why do you keep doing that? And he was like, well, I do it because of this. Why do you keep getting sensitive about it? Like, so we were going back and forth, but all of this could have been resolved if we had better communication skills. And honestly, if we just had more life experience, a lot of the stuff that we went through, we could have kind of, navigated our way around it, but we didn't.
You're right.
And one thing I know we used to do a lot and ways to manipulate each other was we used to use the D word a lot.
No, not the D word. No.
Yep. The D word.
Divorce, never under no circumstances, fellas, use the divorce word as a manipulation tactic.
Yeah.
Because for women, and this is real, this is real. This is realer than real. For women, one of their primary needs is security.
Yeah.
When you say, I'm divorcing you, you're ripping that away from her. She's like, it hits them different than it hits us. Mm-hmm. It does.
Yeah.
So never under no circumstances should we ever be using the divorce word as a manipulation tactic.
Right. And what is it? When you use the word divorce, it's really masking something else.
Absolutely.
It's like, I'm so frustrated with you that I'm going to use something that is so detrimental to both of us to get you to listen, to get you to pay attention, instead of what's the underlying issue? The underlying issue is I'm frustrated because of X, Y, and Z. Or I feel disappointed because of X, Y, and Z. And we didn't do a lot of that. We immediately jumped. We immediately went to, 0 to 1 million. It's like, no, well then fine. Let's just get a divorce then. That was our solve for everything. And you can't, because it was so manipulative. And for me, when I heard it come from him, I'm like, hit my low self-esteem again. Another reason why nobody wants me. Nobody wants to be with me. And that wasn't the case. It wasn't that I didn't want to be with him, but I wanted to get his attention. And I thought that was an attention grabber. Same thing for him. This is an attention grabber. It's not that I want to go anywhere, but if this is the way to get your attention, then that's what I'm going to use.
Yeah. And in the beginning of a marriage, you're really figuring each other out. And that's the show. That's the reveal. So things that you're revealing in the beginning, it's okay to take your time to reveal them too. Mm-hmm. But foundational things that you should have is communicating properly. You have to communicate and try to be slow to anger. Mm-hmm. Slow to anger, especially as fellas. We resort to anger very quickly. So we have to do better at that. We do.
And I think it's giving you guys practical things, right? So I talked a lot about low self-esteem, but it's like, well, how did you get out of that? There's still some times when low self-esteem creeps in because that's something that I'm still dealing with. Even at my age, I'm still dealing with it because, your memories don't go away. So sometimes something will creep in and you'll be like, oh, I'm not quite healed from that yet. But you got to be able to work through those things. So some practical things I did that helped our marriage was when I went to that women's fellowship and she said, well, what's something that you like about yourself? And when I couldn't answer her, I went back home and I thought more and more about it. I was like, well, what do I like about myself? That triggered me. And that was the catalyst for me to start wanting to understand me better because I went to an all-white school. I was always comparing myself to other people that didn't even look like me, that didn't sound like me, that didn't walk like me, that their body type was not like me. So I was always comparing myself. So I had an unrealistic expectation of who I should be because I was comparing myself to people that weren't like me. So what I did was I started to write a list out of all the things I like about myself. And I swear it took a solid week before me to even have like a few things on the list that I was confident in that I do like this about me. And then I started to build on that. And then as I started to get into the Word of God more, and the only way I was able to get into the Word of God, that didn't just happen naturally for me. I had to get into situations that would allow me to get into the Word of God. So me saying, okay, I'll go to this women's fellowship, even though I didn't want to, I went. Anytime my sister-in-law would invite me to go somewhere where there was women of God that were talking about the things of God, I would go. The problem is that a lot of people don't want to break away from the things that are comfortable to them, which is why they're stuck in the same mindset, doing the same thing with the same people. I didn't want to break away from those people that actually didn't make me feel good about myself. They made me feel horrible about myself, but I couldn't seem to break away from them. But only until I consciously started doing things to get away from those people, then I could start to take in and absorb things that were good for me, that was good for my soul. So then I started to slowly become less and less insecure because I started to know that God was my creator. I was created a certain way. I was created to be beautiful. I was created in his image. I wasn't getting that knowledge from the friends I was hanging out with because they were talking about people. Did you see that dress that girl had on? Did you see her hair? Look at her makeup. Wow, she's fat. Like all these things. So if you're hanging around with people that are talking like that, that's going to get in you. So I had to fight against that by finding other people that were not like that and actually getting healthy. So once you start to get healthy, then your marriage can be healthy because now you're bringing something healthy to your marriage.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. That's good. Fellas, it's the same thing. It is absolutely the same thing that we face as fellas, old friends that you like, they're not treating their wives right. If you around dudes, if you got friends that got side chicks, you need to leave them immediately.
Yep.
Unless you want a side chick.
That part. I'm
going to say it again. If you want a side chick, hang around people with side chicks. If you want a healthy marriage, hang around people with healthy marriages.
That's good.
That's simple advice.
Yeah.
You're like, do you know anybody? I don't know nobody with a healthy marriage. Well, find someone. It's not that hard. If you don't know anyone, if you don't have any examples, then now you're like, God. This is what I need. This is a prayer. God, put me around healthy people. Mm-hmm. You can pray for it because God will hear you. He will answer your prayer. But you got to stay away from ratchet people and allowing them to influence your marriage, because your friends will influence your marriage. Absolutely. They will influence your marriage more than your parents, more than your pastor, more than any other source. So watch your friends.
Absolutely. That's good what you said though. If you don't currently have that in your life, then pray for it. And you're like, well, I don't know how to pray for that. Well, at the very least, take a step back and separate yourself. And I know separation is hard. A lot of people get separation anxiety from leaving a group of friends that that's all that they've ever known.
Right.
But you got to separate yourself in order to say, okay, let me take a step back. Even if it's just to be in isolation. And isolation is hard. But you're better off being in isolation and trying to discover and find what it is that God has for you, instead of being in a group of people that are completely against what God is saying for you to do.
Absolutely. Because you're going to start to take on their mentality, their mindset. And that's what you don't. We want God to be in every part of our life. Every part. Yeah. Every part. He's our source. So if you're not doing these things and you have all these other people in your life, then you're like, okay, what? This is where the enemy attacks you. And we keep going back to the same thing, because in the reveal, in the show, we're not just trying to work on our marriage. We have to work on us too.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Because you're not going to have a good marriage if you're not working on you.
Yeah. And I think if you want to have a good measure of how honest and how open you're being with your spouse, you got to look at how open and honest you're being with God in your private time.
Oh, man.
What are you revealing to God in your private time?
You better talk that talk.
Are you revealing to him that you need him? Are you revealing to him that you can be superficial? Are you revealing to him that you have a problem with drugs or alcohol? Are you revealing to him openly? It's not that he doesn't know these things. That's not it. It's not that he doesn't know these things. He knows everything. But the point of you taking the time to sit down and say, God, I'm going to openly confess with my mouth all of my shortcomings because I'm recognizing that I need you in all of these areas to make me better. Then he can step in and say, okay, I can work with this. I can work with you revealing all of these things to me. So if you're able to reveal all of those things to your Heavenly Father, then he's able to help you reveal these things to the partner that he gave you, to your spouse.
Confess.
Because if you're not confessing to him, why would you go and confess to somebody here? Why would you confess to your spouse? If you won't confess to somebody that already knows all of your faults, if you won't confess to them, then why would you confess to your spouse? You won't. You won't. So you have to acknowledge that you need help. You have to acknowledge that. And only once you reveal that to God, then you can start to reveal and be open to your spouse. And you don't have to put on a show.
No show around here.
So yeah, I think that's, if you got nothing out of today, we just want you to be encouraged that you don't have to continue to put up a show. If there's things that you've been battling with, that you've been struggling with, it doesn't matter what it is. First, take it to God. Take it to God and ask God to help you with these things. And if it's a really hard conversation, ask him to help you navigate that hard conversation so that you can reveal those things to your spouse. Your spouse is meant to be a helpmate to you. They're not meant to save you. So I have to say that again. They're not meant to save you. You working with God and revealing yourself to God, that's the only way that you can save yourself from the challenges that you're facing. But your spouse is there to help you. They're there to support you and help you navigate that. So we encourage you to, if you're struggling in any area and you feel like you've been putting up a show and you can't reveal these things to your spouse, go to God first. Lay it all out on the line with him. And then pray that he helps you to navigate that and be able to share that with your spouse.
Right. Well said. Well said. Yeah, guys, thank you for listening. Hey, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcast or Spotify, man, hey, leave a review if you could. That'd be awesome. Leave us a review. See if tell us if you're getting something out of this, because we hope people are getting something out of this.
Absolutely. You know, our prayer is that every time that we touch these mics and we turn these cameras on is that God download into us what people need to hear. We don't know everything. We're definitely not professionals. We just know a little bit about a little bit. So whatever we can share in our experiences, we want to try to give those to you guys. So yeah, thank you for rocking with us. Tune in next week. I think we'll be doing our Valentine's Day episode a couple days early. But yeah, come check us out. We got something special for you guys that day.
We sure do.
Yeah, we appreciate you. Is that it?
That's it.
All right, give me a kiss.